Thank you guys for having me. First of all, before I start speaking, let me ask you to open your mind really big. Because I'm going to talk about a topic that could offend somebody very easily if you don't try to. So please try to figure my intent, my integrity, what I'm trying to say instead of what you think I might be able to say. So, that being said, I'll apologize ahead of time if I do offend somebody, but I want you to get the idea of what I'm going for. So, my speech is supposed to be about inspiring others. So, I wanted to go back to the idea, we're at Toastmasters, so I want to inspire the Toastmasters on public speaking. So I tried to think of orators that I respect. So we've heard a lot of things recently because of the 50th anniversary of John F. Kennedy getting shot. I could have picked that because he had a lot of speeches, a very well-spoken person. Thought about President Lincoln as well because the Gettysburg Address has been quoted a few times in the last several weeks. I thought about that. What I'm going to go for, open your minds, is Jesus Christ. Now, again, I want you to open your mind because I could say, if you talk religion or politics in a public setting, you're asking for disaster. What I want you to think of is, this is not either. This is not religion. This is a history lesson. And where I got this idea, I was in college, and my major in college was pastoral theology. I thought, just like any other 18-year-old, I thought I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up and decided it didn't later, but I thought I wanted to be a minister. So you have to go to school for that kind of thing to learn a lot of things. One of the most interesting classes I took, though, was actually a history lesson of Jesus Christ, taking it from a historical side. For this to make any sense, we have to concede to a couple of things. He was a real person. I think nobody in the room is going to say it's not a real person. There's too many historians that said he was a real person. And I wish my Jewish friends were here too. Even if you don't believe he's a deity. Oh, my Jewish friend. Even if you don't, and I talked to Randy before on this, even though if you don't believe he's necessarily a deity, he was a rabbi, so he's a very well-spoken person as well. So I want to go from that, what I learned in those type of classes as, let's take everything else out, and we're talking about a historical person that spoke to a whole lot of people. So what do we know about this person, Jesus Christ? First of all, he's born about a little over 2,000 years ago. And we're actually about to celebrate his birth. Those of us who celebrate Christmas are going to celebrate his birthday in about a month, which is kind of odd considering most historians think he was born around mid-April. So maybe it's more appropriate that we were to sing Joy to the World as we're writing our tax check. So let's try that instead. What else do we know about him? He was about 33 years old, and he was executed by the standing government of the time, the Roman Empire. And why was he executed? Mainly because he spoke and he said things that weren't very popular at the time. So in his 33 years, he was afforded the chance to speak to a lot of people. So what made him good about it? Let's see, what made him a good orator? First of all, he must have been able to project his voice very well. I mean, the guy talked to 5,000 people at one time. And now when they say 5,000, you check with historians, they say 5,000 men is a lot of times what they talk. Now whether it's right or not, I don't agree. They didn't really count women and children at the time. When they said 5,000 men, 5,000 people, they were probably talking 5,000 men. So think about it, they probably brought their wife, probably brought their 2 or 3 kids. So we may have been 10, 15, 20,000 people. He's on top of a mountain, he's talking to everybody. Now you got to figure, he's not talking alone. He's got to be projecting his voice very well. He's got to be able to speak much more eloquently than I'm even doing right now. Enunciation is a very important thing when you're talking. You have to talk slowly, as me and my friend Ken there know, for that to make any sense. Now, a couple things that I learned from this class I really enjoyed. And you got to figure too, what was the purpose of why I was going to college at the time? At that time, I was going to be a minister, and I was going to do sermons every week. So why not listen to the person that probably did sermons the best of anybody else? So what did he do to make that work? He kept it simple. Okay, so again, let's go back in history. He's Jewish, and he grew up in the Jewish culture. And he spent a lot of time at the synagogue, from what I understand as well. So more than likely, he probably knew the Torah backwards and forwards, as most Jewish boys of his time would know it very well. So why didn't he talk about that a lot of times? If you ever read any of his sermons, he didn't spend a whole lot of time talking about the Old Testament and that type thing. He only had maybe 5 or 6 different topics he talked about. He talked about love your enemy, love your friend, love your neighbor. A lot of love involved in all that, but he kept it very, very simple. Now, I think a lot of people just assume that he talked about a whole lot of things, but if you really, really read it, there's only a few topics he talked about. Now, what else did he do that was really fascinating to me? You know, I've been talking a lot of details right now, and I can tell I'm going to lose some people real quick. They're going to start drifting off. So what did he do when people started to drift off? Again, you're talking 15, 20,000 people. This is before amplification was even a possibility. So he's having to talk really loud and keep all of them interested. And granted, they're hungry. They haven't got their food yet. So what does he do? What does he do? He stops and tells stories. Now, it's almost like he told bedtime stories on a regular basis. Those of you that went to Sunday school or anything like that, they would call parables. He would say a earthly story with an inspirational or religious meaning. So he would tell a story about something, and then he would turn around and say, what does that mean? Now, why is that important to us? If you think about it, if I just got up here and spouted details over and over and over and over and over, you all should be asleep because it's very, very boring. But naturally, if I tell you a story, you're going to relate to that story. Because your brain is thinking a lot faster than you're listening, what can happen is you can start drifting. I can start telling details and you're just going to start drifting. And I may tell a fact that says, you know what, that's right, I've got to do the laundry when I get home. Got the turkey to make, got family coming in. Oh, what did these last 10 things that he just said? If I tell a story, though, that's going to take that part of your brain that's going off into la la land, and it's going to put you into that world for that story. So he told stories about somebody sowing seeds, and the whole point was it was putting wasting your time is basically what it said. There's some people that are wasting their time, and some people that are spending better time doing things. It's something else. So now that I'm not going to be a minister, I use that in the sales world. Now I can spend all my time in non-sales events. That's not going to get me any return on investment. Now I might like it. I might talk with people and just go out and chat with a person on the street, but it's not going to do me any good. Maybe I spend more time with Toastmasters, with the chamber, with any other kind of networking event. That's where I'm going to sow my seeds. So that's a way I can tell a story that gets somebody to think of another way of looking at it. And most of you probably heard of the story of the prodigal son. He's talking about the good things of, you got the one son that left and spent all his inheritance. And then you got the other son that stayed around. And there's so many things you can do with that story. Now, the one thing you can say is, the one son that wasted his means, he had a home to come back to. And that's an inspirational story that you can always come back home. So that's, if you're a parent, you can get that. The other side is, the person that stuck around was upset at the time that he didn't spend his inheritance, but he stayed there the whole time. The whole point on that was, those that stick around and do what they're supposed to do on a regular basis will have better return later on. That's the idea. So, and back to the idea of telling stories. Just so you don't think it's just a religious connotation. Who else just tells stories on it? Let's think about newscasters. If you ever watch the news, and the next time you watch the news, pay attention to this. They do it in simple 30-second sound bites. And it's kind of odd that you think they don't do it on purpose. They maybe talk about somebody being murdered in Durham, 5 minutes later to talk about bunny rabbits. What's that about? The whole idea, they're going back to the idea. They want to keep the bunny rabbits, keeping it simple, but they still have to get in that knowledge as they go. So if you're an orator and you're talking, sometimes you have to get that knowledge in there. Pepper it in with other things. So, there was, the stock market went down 300 points, or it's up 400 points, and you're starting to lose them. Let's talk about the bunny rabbit. And then they'll get back into their attention. They do these things on purpose. So, the inspiration I would have for you to do. Again, I changed what I was going to do out of college, so I had to figure all these things I learned, how can I incorporate it into the world I'm in now? So, what I would want to inspire you to do. Next time you get up and talk, don't try to prove that you're the smartest person in the world. Again, back to the idea, Jesus Christ probably knew the Torah back and forward, and he didn't want to impress everybody, say, hey, look how smart I am. I can quote this, 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 this. He told little bedtime stories on a regular basis, what he did to get his knowledge across. So when people ask me a lot of time, why do I tell a lot of stories? That's because I don't want to bore you to tears with all the knowledge that's here. And I just told you all the knowledge that's up here, but that's not going to get you anywhere. So again, back up, keep it simple, tell the stories, keep them interested, and you'll get a lot further with the talent you have.